So when I first moved here, I actually changed my Instagram handle to Johnny Iowa, and that lasted about 5 minutes. I got about 100 DMs, and they were like, change it back immediately.
Johnny Iowa.
So, yeah, changed it back.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Heck yeah, man. Dude, we put a lot of food in the ground every year, seemingly more and more, and we have a ton of fun with it during the off season. There's some struggles that come with it too, though, right? Obviously, the back of my truck is evidence, right now. It's a couple weeks after I jackknifed, a 4,800-pound material spreader, as I was coming down, and it was too much weight for my truck there. But, all those struggles aside, Deer Grow really has been a staple for our food plotting process for several years now. Yes, we like to put lime and fertilizer on the plots, if we can, but there are some that it's just we're not able to get to them, or it's not feasible for us to get out of state with that stuff. And so Deer Grow is kind of the quick and easy, but still super effective option for us to be able to get the most out of those food plots that we can every year.
Yeah, and we're guilty of overanalyzing things just like everyone else, but that's the best part about Deer Grow is that it's going to create healthier soils, which in turn makes better food plots. And the fact is we can simply spray plot start or plot till when we put the seed in the ground, and then when that plant starts to grow, we hit it with Boost. And we know that we walk away, when we come back, it's going to be a great looking food plot. For anybody that's looking to try Deer Grow, if you use the code HUNTR15, that's HUNTR15 at checkout for deergrow.com, you're going to save 15% on any of your Deer Grow products. It's a great way to get started on this and just see what the results are for yourself.
Better food plots, bigger deer.
And we're back.
Hey,
HUNTR Podcast, episode 169.
Tight right on today's pod, boys and girls.
Finally made it.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate you guys tuning in, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. We do appreciate you listening and tuning in from week to week here. Those comments and a lot of you guys have written in here recently. We see that. We appreciate you guys. I'm sorry if we haven't responded to you.
We're trying.
We're trying to keep up with those, but yeah, we appreciate you being here.
Give us a like, subscribe, follow, whatever is appropriate.
You good with those camera angles, Nick? You like that one?
So,
all right, cool.
And
all right, buddy.
Yeah, Nick's on point. Still February 1st. We're doing a double today.
Yep.
We have
We made it. We're through the first 50% of these 2 months that we dread.
Yeah, we're getting there. In February we could look at the brighter side, shed season still, and plan in.
February's gonna fly by.
Even though it's a leap year.
I know, extra day.
Wow, he's like 7 right now, right?
I can only do this once every 4 years. 29 days in February.
Very nice. So, yeah, leap year,
What do you know?
Yeah, it's that time where, trying not to be in the funk of February. But I think we'll be doing some shed hunting, just walking some properties, thinking about plans. I was thinking about it earlier. I was like, man, I need to get soybeans ordered, maybe some corn, thinking about switch, so we're on it at this point.
Yep.
I ordered some fruit trees the other day for some planting.
Yep.
Put some fruit trees out.
A lot of cool stuff. I mean, in the seed department, we'll get more into it on a later one, but working with Jeff Sturgis on his wildlife.
We are.
Seed blend stuff. So kind of some exciting stuff there. We learn a lot from Jeff every year. As far as different planting types and stuff. So that's coming up here pretty quick.
Yeah, we're like there. We're talking about
a bit of frost
seeding here soon. So yeah, crazy. We got that. I've got some new liquid fertilizers coming out on Deer Grow's side here in March as well, which would be pretty big because we talk about the struggle and cost around dry fertilizers and application. So that'll be a big one, back to liquid and sprayers only. Make that a lot cleaner. So yeah, I mean, lots of things coming up, and this is the 13th that you said, Nick. So maybe somebody saw me at Great American Outdoor Show. We've got Iowa Deer Classic coming up at the end of the month that we're going to be at, just kind of hanging out, walking around. So
vacation in the meantime, some burn scheduled, like you said, some shed hunting, some ice cream business ripping back up at the start of March.
February's going to fly by, man.
Yeah, we're busy.
Yeah.
We're busy.
Back in work mode, out of hunt mode.
Yeah.
for the time being.
Trying to keep a pump in the meantime here.
Gym action.
So our guest is going to put me to shame on that. But.
Yeah, we got John Mulligan on today.
Mm-hmm.
The old
Johnny Utah.
Johnny Utah. Huh? Yeah, that's what we were talking about it earlier. We were saying that when we saw John at ATA, he had a big pump going on.
I said, "Holy
there.
shit! Look at those pecs."
Yeah, he was putting
saw those from
to
3
shame.
hours away.
So clearly, I was out of place in the group. So yeah, it was. Yeah, it was definitely odd man out of that sector. But
Jeremy's like, I really want to lose 3 pounds.
yeah, I was like, this is great. What are you guys like doing? Just like eating calories? Cool. Like I'm dropping weight. So yeah, cool to have John on here and talk about, what he's got going on. We were talking about food plots at ATA a lot and kind of what he's looking at from a property management side and some of the leases and stuff that he's doing and where he's going to be hunting this year and stuff. So
another Iowa guy,
Yeah.
you might know John from, a lot of businesses. Like that's kind of where we crossed paths, originally with like the Wicked Treat gear,
Mm-hmm.
some crossovers with, why is his name escaping me at the moment, but, on the white knuckle stuff. Todd
Prignitz.
Prignitz.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we have some history in that way. It's a small industry, right? It's our passive.
David Morris and Tecumani crossover.
And also
well.
so from Primal Divide is John's full-time production. I believe that's on the Sportsman channel.
Mm-hmm.
And John's a cool dude, so we're just figuring we get connected here.
There we go. I'm going to bring him in.
We got you, John.
Yes. What's happening, fellas?
What up, man? How are you?
Welcome.
Good. Doing good, man.
Are you
getting ready for a lot of travels coming up?
I was gonna say, where are you at now? In Iowa?
Yeah. I'm in Iowa right now, and then tomorrow I'm gonna head. It's like a 14-hour drive out there to PA. So.
You're coming out.
Hey.
Yeah.
Dang, dude.
Yeah.
A lot of people
to the Great American Outdoor Show. Yeah.
You got a booth, or are you just hanging?
No, just hanging, man. Just hanging, and my main camera girl that you guys met at ATA, she lives in PA.
Oh, that's right.
So
that's right.
I was like, I tell you what, I'm gonna come out to the show anyways, and I'll bring some gear, and we'll try to squeeze in a couple of photo content days while we're out there.
Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Now I feel like I should have squeezed out more than I think I budgeted like a day-ish.
I'll be on the beach. I'll sip a little Corona for you with my toes in the sand.
Yeah, there
that's
you go.
awesome.
I have no interest in that Harrisburg
Where are you going?
We're going to Virgin Islands.
Oh, heck yeah.
That's just awesome. For a week. With the ice cream business, John, we gotta January, February is the only time we can kind of if we're gonna get away, that'd be the time. So we try to every year.
Sure. Yeah, that's funny. I guess I never really thought about the seasonality of an ice cream business until just now. And that makes a lot of sense.
It complements a hunting season pretty nicely. So it's like mid-October is when we shut it down. So obviously I hunt a little bit before that, but when it's time to really get cranking, I got one last push to wrap everything up and then I'm in the woods as much as I can be.
Yeah. Well, I am not a fair weather ice cream guy. It's 12 months a year for me.
Yeah.
Huge fan of ice cream.
Well, we have a lot of people that when they panic, when they hear that we're close, and they come down and they'll order like pints and quarts at a time, and they're like, I got to stock up for the whole off season, So we typically
can I get that in a 5-gallon bucket?
Yeah. Well, whatever we have, we're willing to sell, right? And so we'll. We typically try to plan for an estimated closing time, but really it's whenever we run out of stuff. So we'll sell everything that we have, and when we're out, we're out. So
yeah.
So it comes down
that's
to
That's awesome.
Yeah. So obviously the Harrisburg show is a big deal. There's a ton, especially during the weekend. There are a pile of people pushing through there, maybe 100,000 through the weekend.
Yeah.
So the last time that I got some fairly legit numbers, it was getting close to 400,000 people walk through that show during the 9 days.
Wow. That's unreal, man.
That is the biggest show in the country, correct? From an outdoor standpoint?
It has to be consumer-wise.
Yeah. I don't think anything else will come close to that.
Yeah. Well, in the Northeast, I think we have the highest number of hunters anywhere in the country.
Density-wise.
Yeah. Do guys come for, consumer-wise? Do they come
New
from
York,
Michigan, Minnesota, New York?
Not so much. New York, they do for sure. Ohio, Maryland, Delaware, Jersey. That's where we're coming through. And then obviously Pennsylvania. You've got some big shows. I know the Wisconsin Dells show that they have, the Deer and Turkey Expo up there. You'll draw people from Minnesota and stuff. There's a Minnesota deer Classic or something like that as well. Obviously, Iowa Deer Classic at the end of the month.
Will you be there for that, John?
The Iowa Deer Classic, yeah, I'll come out and hang around for a day.
Yep.
Is that a good time?
And I'll probably. It is. Home state show for me, so that's neat.
Yep.
But I like to. I've had a booth there in the past, and it's just one of those things. Like, I'd rather just walk around, than sit in a booth. But it's it is a good time. I'm going to come out Saturday for the show, and then we're going to take off and bomb down to Kentucky. We've got some coyote hunting we're going to do with the guys from Fox Pro.
Whoa,
there you go.
So.
Very nice.
Yep.
Awesome.
So that's going to be kind of cool. Got a new AR partner that came on this year, so we're going to break in some new 6mm ARC rifles with those guys. So that's going to be a fun hunt.
Well, John, since you're going there, can you just give us a spiel for people that may not have seen or come across your stuff before? We kind of gave you a bit of an intro, but who are you? You're from Iowa. How did you kind of get your start into the industry? Feel free to just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I grew up in central Kentucky and kind of aging myself a little bit. When I was a teenager, we didn't even have whitetails. And there wasn't much of a whitetail season. And I remember there was a couple of guys I went to high school with, and they would get all fired up because they saw a doe over the weekend. And so I'm like, well, that's stupid. Why would you go hunt an animal that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't big into hunting. My dad wasn't into hunting. So we fished a lot. Then when I moved to Northern Kentucky, I started my career as a police officer. And one of the guys that I went to the academy with, he was from Texas. And there's always a lot of hunting in Texas, And so he said, man, we ought to get into whitetail hunting. You're from Kentucky. Surely, you know plenty about whitetails amongst probably eating possums on the side of the road and everything else, not wearing shoes in Kentucky. But I said, no, I don't know anything about it at all. So I went to a public library and checked out a bunch of books, and all of the books that I checked out, I have now later went back and purchased the hard copies, of these.
Can you recall, John, what some of those might have been?
So there's like the whitetail strategies.
Yeah.
There's 2 different versions of that, like a version 1 and a version 2. Does the cover
of that come to mind? I've seen it.
Yep. So those are some of the books that's how I taught myself how to hunt. And I watched a little bit of, David Morris and some of those guys. I watched some of that stuff on Saturday mornings and Sunday morning, like TNT and some of those old shows. But again, didn't know a whole lot about it. And I went at it like a lot of people as a rifle hunter. Did that a few seasons and kind of thought, well, this is not really that cool. And I'm not saying that it wasn't hard, but it just wasn't the challenge, I guess, that I was hoping it was going to be.
How old would you have been here, John? This is in your...
I was 22.
Okay.
22. Yeah, I was already a cop at that time, 22, 23. And so the local Matthews dealer was also the local gun store in Northern Kentucky. This place, a business called Mark's Guns. It's still in business today. And the guy that ran it, his name is Joe Beck. And I attribute a lot of what I get to do now to him because I had a toddler on the way. And he's like, you need a bow. I think a bow will really be your thing to make that challenge. And I thought, dude, I got a toddler on the way.
I got enough of a challenge coming already. Kill me.
Yeah. And so he said, I tell you what, Matthews allows me to give away 1 free bow a year. And I'm going to give a bow to you. And had he had not given me that bow, you ever seen that movie, The Adjustment Bureau? With Matt Damon? It's like somebody's pulling the strings and it's kind of it plays on that whole idea of like if you got caught at a red light, the rest of your day is forever altered, right?
Yep. Cause and
so
effect
I think about
stuff.
that. Yeah, I think about it in that way. I'm like, if I would have never got that bow, like things would have totally been different, right? Fell in love with bow hunting, thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I was torn because I was also driving dirt late model stock cars racing for money as well. So I was kind of torn between my time, where my focus was. But this is before photography, and I consider myself a big time hunter, and I hunted 4 weekends a year. But to me, that was hunting my ass off, right?
Yep.
So it's funny how things have changed, over the years. But I went to a trade show and I met Todd Prignitz. I was a big fan of White Knuckle Productions, the DVDs, and we hit it off, became buddies, and I ended up becoming a partner. Bought into the company, became a partner of Wicked Tree Gear in the early stages of development of that. And then he gave me an opportunity to kind of be like the team manager of White Knuckle, which meant coordinating the effort with the guys and talking to all of the partners that were a part of the show. And I'll be honest, White Knuckle Productions was a show, but the main reason was it was a free platform to promote Wicked Tree Gear.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We had Elite and other companies and Vortex and Covert. We had other companies that came on board basically to help foot the bill.
Yeah.
And they got their advertisement as well, but wholeheartedly we ran that show as a launch pad to promote, Wicked Tree Gear, the company that we owned. Mm-hmm. So that was my first introduction to the whole marketing side of the world, and what is it that brands want and how do you represent a company and whatnot. But we ran the business until we grew it pretty big. It got, I remember the last year we broke $1 million in sales. And then that's when the phone calls started coming. And, we had equity groups wanting to purchase the company. We sold the company. Todd took his lump sum buyout and went off and did his thing. I took mine as a structured deal and stayed on board to develop new products. So like the Wicked Tough and the Machete and the hand clippers. And, those are all products that, I designed, the Beast Saw. And that was pretty cool, but it also gave me a window. Like, I've got 3 years to figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up. And I had left police work at this point. My undercover career, all that stuff was done. And I was like, okay, in 3 years, I got to have this figured out. And I picked up a camera and tried to get as good as I could and then launched the show. And I mean, I just squeaked by the skin of my teeth, you know what I mean? And finally things started to catch on and took off, and it's kind of where we are today.
I mean, John, would you say, kind of thinking back, like, so the White Knuckle stuff, you did a digital, but you had DVDs, right? I mean, that was... Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that was kind of a pretty abrupt change from what was, call it mainstream outdoor television, I guess, at that time.
Yeah, I mean, in reality... like White Knuckle Productions and, Todd Graff and Justin Czar and those guys over at bowhunting.com with the Bowhunter Die Show, that was really the two biggest web shows that were out at that time. Mm-hmm. And, looking back on it, granted, we didn't have as much competition as there is nowadays. Sure. There's a ton of really good shows that are being produced, but looking back on it, I'm like, man, that was a hell of an accomplishment. Like we were in the top 2, top 3 at that time. Then of course, Midwest Whitetail really started to pick up steam and did a lot more digital stuff as well. Mm-hmm. So, there was a lot of good shows, but yeah, I mean, really Todd Graff and Todd Prignitz were kind of the pioneers of that digital, in my opinion, that digital footprint of shows like that.
Mm-hmm. So when you say digital, was it on a website? Was it YouTube? I'm trying to remember. I want to say YouTube is where I watched a lot of the White Knuckle stuff.
We ended up putting a lot of stuff on YouTube, but initially we were just posting the videos in full form on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Like you could watch a 20-minute episode on Facebook.
Wow, that's funny, man.
Well, at that time, dude, I mean, there wasn't like on the public platform. Like YouTube is something that kind of evolved out of, I don't know what drove it necessarily or whatever. It's just a kind of a commonplace. That's where people are viewing stuff. So it only made sense to have it here. But all of those originally were on the website. Like if you wanted to watch White Knuckle or even Midwest Whitetail or the Bowhunter Die stuff, you mentioned the bowhunting.com. It's like you went to their website and they had some kind of
it was a player
plugged onto their thing. And it was all about SEO and content and like bringing people to your website and stuff. And that was the thing then.
Yeah. Well, and so I mean, I'll be 46 next month. So YouTube was big, and then YouTube actually kind of went down big time. So that's why we started doing stuff more to just Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And then YouTube has now taken back off, again. But a lot of people, don't even recall that YouTube kind of had a peak and then a valley, and then now it's just, astronomically, huge. But the other reason for that was posting to Facebook. The idea was, and this came from there was no marketing degree. I don't have a marketing degree. My degree is in horticulture, but I know people, and I knew people because I was buying heroin off of people and selling heroin on the streets, under an assumed identity. That's my marketing.
For law enforcement purposes.
Okay,
is what you're,
For law enforcement purposes. Yes. Allegedly. But no, like I go into a crack house, I've got 30, 45 seconds to convince them that I'm not a cop and they want to sell me drugs.
I got to tell you something.
Think
John.
about
I would never believe you. I say that freaking guy's a narc.
Listen, guys, I'm not a cop. I know what you're thinking.
Yeah. But if you think about it, if you're at a trade show and you're working a trade show booth, or if you're trying to get somebody to watch your TV show, you've got 30, 45 seconds to capture their attention or they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar. You know what I mean? So I always say the best marketing training I ever had was trying to buy dope in Cincinnati. Like that's the best marketing tool I ever had. But the mentality, the thought process on it was, don't make somebody have to go to another platform.
Right.
They're already on Facebook for a reason. So let's just keep them there.
Yeah.
They're more likely to watch the episode without leaving the platform. And now we see it nowadays. If you post a link to YouTube on Facebook, Facebook just throttles. They just kill, they want to kill it because they're like, no. We don't want them leaving our platform to go to YouTube. Screw that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny how a lot of that stuff played out, but we had a lot of success with our DVDs, and I was drawn to the white knuckle style because, again, it wasn't about the kill. I mean, how many DVDs did Todd not even kill a deer?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The early years, he never killed a deer. You just saw him passing 5- and 6-year-old 170s in Iowa, and I'm in Kentucky watching it going, man, this guy's an idiot. You know what I mean? Like he's an idiot. So funny story, the day we met, we were actually at the Ohio Deer and Turkey Expo when it was like still the Field and Stream Deer and Turkey Expo in Columbus. And I'm walking through and I was like, oh shit, like that's that guy, Todd. And my buddy elbows me and he's like, is that the guy, like you've watched his DVDs? I'm like, yeah, it's the guy that never shoots anything. and he's like, well, this is the reason why I don't shoot anything. And that was our initial conversation, how we actually met for the first time.
That's funny, man.
But yep. So I give him a lot of credit for taking me under his wing. He showed me a lot. He taught me a lot of the, I don't want to call them tricks of the trade, so to speak, but as far as networking and meeting companies and kind of getting your foot in the door. And, I've always said there's a million great photographers, but only 50 get the opportunities. And what's the difference? You know what I mean? And a lot of it comes down to people skills and, right place, right time. Like we've always heard, it's not who you know or not what you know, it's who you know. So a lot of that still, comes into play every day.
I think that a big part of that was Todd's passion for deer hunting was just like infectious. Like he was such a what's the word? Like an eccentric person. Like he was just so over the top. It was just, he was hilarious to watch. Like we've all seen the Walter Payton shed video. It's just like the dude's absolutely losing his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And,
lost his mind.
You know, and
he would do that over sheds.
I know.
He'd find a shed and you would see him just freak out. You know?
To the point where a lot of people were like, man, is this guy acting? Like, there's no way this could be, like, real.
Well, there's an element of, like, being taken seriously. It's like, it's like, okay, I get excited about sheds, too, but it's like, okay, it's like, he's a little too excited. Like, so what's going on here? But,
Yeah,
100%. He definitely sold the passion, and that was, oh, sweet. Just got a message that my rifles arrived at my FFL.
There you go.
It's always a good day.
Coyote
right? It's
ready.
Like a call from the taxidermist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was Todd's deal, right? Like he was so passionate about it, and it was so easy to like get sucked into his story and his journey, because he was so passionate about it, and he made whitetails his life. I mean, not to be cryptic, but all the way up until the end. He was looking for sheds when he had his, 4-wheeler accident.
Was he?
So yeah. So and the other part of it too was anybody that's been involved, even a fan of this industry for 15 years, the last 15 years, has seen the evolution of video to photo and video, and the different cinematic styles and the storytelling, styles of it all. But we had kind of hit a crossroad where I was getting into photography, and I thought that was going to be the future. You have Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and I'm like, man, there's 3 different platforms that are catching on. There's 3 different opportunities for photo content to arrive on. And let's say if I'm Hoyt, or if I'm Loopold and I'm managing these different accounts, I'm going to need content, like a lot of content. So I approached Todd and said, I really think we ought to have a focus on photography. And we kind of differed in opinion. And, Todd was like, no, it's all about killing giant deer on video. That's it. He was very line in the sand. And I was like, I respectfully disagree. Like, I don't think it's going to come down to the kill as much anymore as it's going to be the content and the story behind it all. So, anyways, that was kind of where, things started to transition, and we just kind of agreed to, basically go our separate ways. And, he continued on with White Knuckle, and I started, my own thing as a freelance photographer, and then also starting to put together some video content and show form.
Yeah. John, why do you think, was there video on those platforms at that time? Like, why were you so set on the photo aspect as opposed to just, content creation in general, photo and photo video?
So we had started working with some other brands, with Wicked Tree Gear. And we knew for Wicked to really grow legs, we had to, it's kind of like, what is the song, OPP? Yeah. But I have another version of that. I'll call it OPA. It's other people's audiences. So for us to really grow Wicked outside of what we were doing, the easiest way to do it is to tap into other people's audiences. That they might not be fans of White Knuckle, but guess what? They might be fans of Heartland Bowhunter. They might be fans of Midwest Whitetail. They might be fans of the Crush TV. Right. So that's when we started branching out and working with other people. And then as I'm trying to ramp up what in my mind is going to be the path of social media growth, I'm like constantly like texting and calling these partners that we're paying. And I'm like, dude, can you send me a photo? Please send me a photo of you using the saw. Well, I mean, we're hunting. Like, I've got your logo on the show intro. And I'm like, well, that's rad, but it's not helping Facebook and Instagram, and it's not helping grow these platforms. So it was kind of a little light bulb that just went off. And I thought, man, if this is the shit that I'm needing all the time, then I think other manufacturers are needing it too. So that was kind of the big drive to maybe there's a void that somebody can fill there, and hell, why not be me?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was an interesting time at that point, because, that was about the same time where I feel like a lot of manufacturers realized that digital was going to be a big value to them, yet they were very vested still on much of the traditional front. And so it was hard, because I almost felt like they belittled, or I guess devalued the digital side of things, whether it was Facebook or Instagram or where that was, because they'd still been, pretty heavily vested in traditional print and especially the TV personalities of things. And so, they had a hard balance there. And sometimes I think some of those manufacturers that didn't adapt paid for it later, because then they had to swing the pendulum so hard to the digital side because they'd sat, traditionally where they had been spending for so long.
Yeah, I mean, you get stuck in what's working, right?
Yep.
It's very hard at any point in life. It doesn't matter what you're doing, marketing, going to the gym. I've got this one exercise that I think it's producing results, but somebody wants me to try a different thing, and man, what if I lose what I gained? So, that's just that as humans, that's just what we do. And I think you hit the nail on the head. What was working was television, and that's what was driving the deal. And it seemed like the social media thing came on so fast, so hard, that the first ones to the game adapted well and they succeeded. And then, I mean, eventually everybody figured it out, or they're no longer in business. But some caught on faster than others. But yeah, it was such a weird time. And I'm grateful that I got to come in right before that. Because again, I don't know if things would have worked out, I don't know if I could have capitalized on that. But like I said, with Todd giving me an opportunity to be the face and the voice to our partners, I remember having a couple of conversations where I just asked, we were working with Elite at the time, and I'm like, what do you guys need? And they're like, holy shit, we've never been asked that.
Somebody
before.
Actually asked the question.
It's just always been like, this is what we're going to do. And we're on television. Yeah. So pay your bills on time.
Yep.
And I was like, no, how can we make this relationship better? What is it that you need from us? To me, that was just an obvious question to ask, and they were like, we've never been asked that before. So I think, and because I didn't come from that space, it wasn't like I was a veteran in the space. To me, the easiest thing to do was to be honest and kind of fall on the sword and just be like, hey, I don't know shit about fuck. Teach me. What is it that you need me to do?
Yeah.
If there's something you need, then that's what we'll provide.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Oh, dude, it's almost fall. You and I are both going to be in a tree stand with brand new Hoyt bows. We're going to be shooting the RX-7 carbon bow this year. I know Hoyt's also got the Venoms out, both equally smooth shooting, quiet bows.
Heck yeah, man. And we got a convert on our hands this year. We got a lifelong crossbow guy with a vertical bow in his hands for maybe the first time ever, a good friend of mine. And we've got them all decked out with the inline accessories from the QAD integrated Ultra Rest to the quiver. And also he's got the SL sidebar mount with a couple of stabilizers from Hoyt as well. So that's going to be a 6-shooting bow. Yeah, and Hoyt's been cool enough that anyone listening to this can save 20% on any of the soft good apparels online using the code HUNTR, HUNTR, no E. And if you want to look at the latest lineup of Hoyt bows, check out your local Hoyt dealer. Get serious? Get Hoyt.
So when you were doing that stuff, were you still residing in Kentucky, or had you picked up and moved to Iowa at this point?
I was still in Kentucky, and that was kind of an interesting thing too, because even those first couple of DVDs, it was always like, is somebody going to recognize me? And I'm like, heroin dealers probably aren't watching whitetail hunting DVDs,
Maybe.
So that was, yeah. So that was kind of a little precarious there. Sure. But I left policing January 12th of 2016, and I had an Iowa driver's license probably by April.
And how much
like that?
How much overlap in your police career in the white knuckle side was there?
From 2013 to 2016.
Okay. And so, so you had done some undercover work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was an overlap there of where you're still living in the area of where you had been doing undercover work, and that people could have been like, son of a bitch.
I knew it. Yeah. I knew his real name wasn't Sean Mullins. Damn it.
Damn. That's crazy, man. So,
that's... How undercover are we talking? Can we talk about that? It's done, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's still 2 active hits to my knowledge. There's still 2 active hits on me right now, but they're in prison. I'm not too worried about it.
What does that mean, active hits?
But, so somebody offered up cash to have me taking off planet Earth.
Wow.
So on like the dark web, or like where do these hits live?
Both of them were actually caught on a recorded line in jail.
So they were calling from jail outside to put a hit on you.
Oh,
yeah, not to their
badass.
attorney. They were calling to a buddy, and they're like, "I'll pay you $25,000 if this guy doesn't make it to trial."
Wow.
And so I get called into the jail, and they're like, "Hey, we have some audio that you might want to listen to." And they're like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "I'm super pissed. That's all I'm worth is 25 grand. Come on, man. I thought I was a bigger target than that,
Damn, man.
And do they pursue those at all? So I mean, if you have 2 active hits, like, is that a concern? Are they after those people?
Guys? Both guys that the offer was made to, both of them declined, and they're like, "Nah, man. If he wasn't a cop, I'd consider it, but I'm not killing a cop for 25 grand,
Jeez, that's crazy, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's because
it's an odd conversation to hear, though. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm sure. Yeah. Well, and so were these? What's like the longest amount of time that you were undercover? Was it all like one and done sting operations, or was it like? You were growing ponytails and living with these guys.
Yeah. I mean, so a lot of times we would utilize informants as best we could, because it allows you to still be fluid and, move on to other cases and other things. Right. But there was times where it just makes a better case if you're the person that's actually involved in the case.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I did a stint where I was in a multi-jurisdictional drug task force, and then our cases were all merged, and we worked with the Cincinnati FBI, Cincinnati DEA, and ATF. And so it was a lot of flexibility. You got to roam around, and you got to get your hands involved in a lot of stuff.
And when you said you were Northern Kentucky, is that like Covington area, so just south of Cincy?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I had Covington, Newport, all the way down to Dry Ridge, Florence, all of Campbell County.
Yep.
And then we would cross over into Cincinnati.
Wow. That's wild, man. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously, I'm sure on your personal life, like that's a lot of stress and sacrifice on that side even.
It is, yeah. But I'll tell you, like, man, you're having so much fun. You don't even think about it.
Really?
I've always said it takes somebody just a little bit nutty to want to go and do that,
But it's a rush, I'm sure.
Oh my God, dude. Like going in and buying drugs off a guy that as soon as the transaction's over with, you're going to do what's called a buy bust. So as soon as the buy is made, you're busting the guy immediately. And just seeing the look on their face, like, oh my God.
You're like, somebody call an ambulance, but not for me.
Yeah. And it's pretty funny. And, I always laugh at those in the movies, like when they're like, oh, how'd that get there? You pull out a gun.
Yeah.
Or that you pull out a, bunch of heroin or crack out of somebody's pocket, and they're like, that's not mine. What?
I've never seen that before.
Never seen it before. I mean, I assume being in that Cincinnati area, though, dude, I would assume you were in some hairy situations.
Yeah. There's there was a lot of it. There was a lot of excitement.
Jeez.
There's definitely no shortage of fun, and you could basically, as hard as you wanted to work, as many stones as you want to turn over, is as much fun as you could have. But it was never personal. Like I used to, you're taking somebody to jail or something, and he's like, man, I hate you. You're an asshole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, do you have a job? You ever had a job before? Yeah.
Right.
Your boss tells you to go and do something, and boss just tells me I had to go do this. It ain't, it's nothing personal, man. It's cat and mouse. You're caught, game's over, like I'm going to go on about my day and not think about this anymore till trial.
So it was mainly drug related, correct?
Yes.
That
unit was all drug. I mean, we didn't even mess with marijuana. Like if it was a weed case, it was simply just to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
We didn't really we didn't prosecute weed cases. It was all, heroin, meth, crack, coke.
Let me ask you this. Did you ever have to do drugs as a part of being undercover? Was like where you're like, hey, show us you're cool?
No, there was a lot of times that it got pretty hairy. People have watched enough movies and they're like, if you don't do drugs, then I know you're a cop. And if I ask you if you're a cop, legally you have to tell me. And I'm laughing on the inside. I'm like, actually, no, the hell I don't. Like, I don't know why society thinks that if they ask an undercover, like, are you a cop? You're legally obligated to tell me if you are. I'm like, no, the hell we're not. Like, that's the biggest bogus thing in the world. But yeah, keep selling it. I love that society thinks that. No, there'd be a lot of times where you're hanging out with these people and they think that you're buddies, because you kind of have built a rapport with them and you're hanging out with them and they're like, man, let's just do a couple of lines together. And my go-to, there was a factory called Durobag. It was a bag and cardboard company factory in the greater Cincinnati area. And that was always my go-to. I'm like, man, I got an interview with Durobag tomorrow. I got a piss test in the morning, but I'll be back tomorrow. And then we'll hook up and we'll do a couple of lines together or whatever, do a little bump. But, and they bought it every single time. They're like, oh, no, that's cool. Yeah, no, that's cool.
Idiots.
That's what I'm saying. So these are not like kingpin guys. These are like fairly stupid, guys, right?
No. So, and that was the way our unit operated. You start at street level and then, it's kind of like the famous Denzel line, in Training Day. You want to go home or you want to go to jail?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, everybody says home. So it's like,
maybe.
all right, let's get 3 buys off your guy.
Yep.
You bust him. You want to go jail? You want to go home?
Yeah.
All right.
Move up
3
the
buys off
ladder.
your guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You just keep working your way up as far as you can take it.
Interesting.
You ever fight somebody in house just for respect? Just for like, speaking of Training Day?
Like Fight Club.
No, Training Day.
Oh, yeah.
Does that happen?
No, oh yeah. Yeah. You scrap a lot.
Sorry for all the police questions.
There was
Sean.
a
I'm just
lot
curious.
No, it's funny. I remember a couple of days working where, I came back in and I clocked out and I was like, I got in 2 foot chases and 3 fights this week. I'm like, and they paid me to do this shit. This is awesome. Like this is the coolest job ever.
Wow.
So yeah, it's very fun.
So what point in that time frame, I guess, I would assume at some point, did you think like, I don't want to do this anymore? Or like, how did the hunting transition out, or just it became pretty opportunistic and successful that you're like, I got to pick one or the other?
And do you miss it? I feel like deer are a pretty inferior adversary to people, like human beings.
I mean, so the second part of that I'll answer first. Dirt late model racing, 900 horsepower sliding sideways at 120 miles an hour on dirt, an inch away from another race car. Wow, that's up there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really up there. Having a stacked team, 8, 9 guys kick a door on a no-knock search warrant and clearing a house with your buddies that you train with, and everybody's stacked, kitted up in ARs, like that's way the hell up there.
Yeah.
But shooting a whitetail with a bow is right up there too. So, because I replaced it with something, I'm okay.
Sure.
But if I didn't replace it with something, I mean, let's face it, you look at my history and the things that I do for fun. I mean, I'm 45 years old and, jujitsu is like one of my favorite things to do in life. I'm an adrenaline junkie. Like I'm a physical junkie. I always want to be doing something like that, so that's fun for me. But the first part of that is, so recently we released a film through HHA and HHA USA, and it actually talks about some of my struggles with PTSD stemming from that job. And it actually is what drove me into bow hunting so hard. Was
Wow.
I needed an outlet, or I could see where the path was going, and it was going to end up in early divorce. It was going to end up in suicide, one or the other.
Wow.
But it starts, the job in policing is different everywhere. When you're in a big city, you see more, right? You're in a smaller city, you don't see as much. And a lot of that stuff doesn't hit home. Once I started having kids, the totality of all of the events start kind of hitting home a little bit, because you see the way kids are affected in some of these calls or some of these crime scenes, and you start relating it to yourself and how it could affect you and your family. And you start seeing how, let's say there's a dad and maybe he's the breadwinner of the family and now he's going to prison. And then now the wife, and like, what are they going to do? Are they going to get evicted? Are they going to be able to buy groceries? You start thinking about that and you're like, man, what if that was my kids? So sometimes it's hard to turn off, and that's why divorce and suicide is going to always be one of the the number one killers in that occupation of law enforcement is, and I think that's why you see the things that you do see, the peaks and valleys, right? And people are like, man, I met this cop and the dude was such a dick. No, he wasn't a dick. That was his protection. Let's say a 0 and 10 scale. You clock in that day, you get in a foot chase, you catch the guy. That's a 10. That's awesome. The next call is a 5-year-old drowned in a tub. Now you're at a 0. And then you take a monotonous, boring call, but somebody's like, F the police when you get there. And you're like, oh, sweet, cool, whatever. So where most police officers find themselves is in that like 2 to 4 range on the happy scale. And that's just where they stay for protection. That's the safe place. So like when people say, man, I approached this cop, he just wasn't very friendly. Well, that's for his protection, not yours. And there's not a lot of training that teaches you how to grieve or how to compartmentalize that stuff, but you get real damn good at it real fast. And, when my dad passed away 3 years ago, everybody kind of looked at me like, oh man, how's he going to react? Because this was such an influential person in my life. I mean, he taught me everything I know about work ethic and drive and focus and stuff like that. And my wife, she was actually the one that she sat me down and she said, you don't get to compartmentalize this one the way that you compartmentalize everything else in life. This one, you got to learn how to process. And I didn't know how. I legitimately didn't know. I didn't know the stages of grieving. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And I went on a hunt. I was in Kansas by myself. I didn't take a camera crew or anything. I shoot a buck in Kansas, and I sat there for 10 minutes and just ugly cried. You can't catch your breath, ugly cried. You know what I mean? But finally I was able to get it out. And I'm like, holy shit, this is like the 4th time in my life I've ever cried.
Yeah.
So, and that was just, that was 3 years ago. So yeah, I felt myself, the analogy that I've always used in that career field is everybody's born with a cup that they, the fuck it bucket, whatever you want to call it. Some people are born with a thimble. Some people are born with a 55-gallon drum. I was born with like an Olympic-sized swimming pool. But no matter how big your capacity to hold shit, eventually that cup runneth over. And when it's full, it's full. There's no emptying it out and putting more back in it. When it's full, it's full. And I had hit a 16-year mark in my career, and my cup was full. Like, I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't want to do the job anymore. I still have a tremendous amount of respect for law enforcement, and I always will. But me personally, I was done. I didn't want to do it anymore. So I was looking for outlets, and the opportunity to sell wicked. I always say that I didn't get to buy the yacht, but I didn't have to be a bullet sponge anymore either. And so that was the opportunity to step away. And I'm like, okay, now I get to go do what I want to go do.
Man, that's crazy. Well, and especially now, like, in hindsight, I mean, look what a lot of law enforcement in the last couple of years has had to go through with, just the mass public and media and spotlights on body cams and stuff. It's like, man, I don't know if I'd want to be a cop right now. Like,
yeah. And, every human has had a bad interaction with a cop. I'm not going to deny that. There's asshole cops the same as there's assholes, everywhere in every occupation. But, that famous bumper sticker that says, oh, you hate the police? Well, next time you're in trouble, call a crackhead.
Yeah.
And that reigns true. And let's face it, society has changed a lot. And in my opinion, policing has been set back 30, 40 years as far as public trust.
Yep.
And it's a shame. It's a shame because, it doesn't do anybody any good. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, if somebody doesn't like you guys individually, it makes you defensive. And you're like, well, then screw that person. That's just a natural human reaction. So if the community and society is like, man, public enemy style, F the police, well, then the cops are like, okay, we're not wanted and screw you too.
Yeah.
And that's just human nature, to some degree. And so it's a shame, but hopefully the tides are going to continue to turn and maybe we can get out of this and there's faith and trust put back into police and military and, everything across and first responders across the board.
Yeah. It's hard, I think, because I can understand why people would have that perception or that opinion. Same way about like, game wardens, like wildlife law enforcement, is a lot of people are quick to be like, they're whatever, I don't like them or whatever, I have a bad opinion of them. But also, like you said, it's like, man, if you get down to it, everybody acknowledges like we need rules like for society to exist. Again, whether it's on the street or in the woods, right? But it's like I think everybody, including the law enforcement officers themselves, want that like force to be better. And so that's where people have disagreements about how does that happen, right? Is there more training? Do we put more money into them? Are there tighter restrictions? Are there, I don't know anything about running a law enforcement, but it's like, I know we need rules and I want enforcement of the rules, but I want honest and fair, judgment or execution. And that's hard because they're people at the end of the day. It's like, how do you expect a perfect performance out of imperfect people? I don't know that it is possible,
Well, and that's an interesting segue too, pertaining to, our industry as a whole. I volunteer as a hunter safety instructor in Iowa, state certified instructor. Mm-hmm. I don't get paid a dime. Every time I teach a class, the sheet gets passed around and I put an X on my name. I refuse to accept payment from the state of Iowa for teaching kids, hunter safety and hunter education. I'm glad to do it. I wish more people, would step up and do it. On that same token, maybe it's because of social media. You see it more. But it does seem like hunting shows get targeted a lot more.
Sure.
And, there's been a few, high profile cases that you look at and you're like, I'm not sure that the law was totally enforced equally there. I get it. They have a show, but the crime's still the same crime that Joe McGillicuddy committed as well.
Sure.
And Joe McGillicuddy got $100 fine.
It's not just shows either. It's big deer in general. It's
or big deer.
Yeah. I mean, we've dealt with a lot of them here recently. We had, what's CJ's last name? CJ.
Alexander.
CJ Alexander on the podcast. In fact, we had Jared Scheffler on the podcast. Brackett.
Omar's.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not saying there's no guilt there. Sure. Like, and we don't know in some cases, but it's like those whole high profile cases, the ones that are getting attention, as I think law enforcement sees those, and maybe you can speak as a former law enforcement as to what we're seeing there, but as an opportunity to, make their presence known, to basically make an example, right? To say, hey, here's a deer that everybody's aware of. We're going to put our foot down and everybody's going to see it. And
hopefully to deter it happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's a couple of things, like the reason why police cars are marked up. One is to identify who they are. Mm-hmm. And if somebody needs assistance, they know who they can come to for assistance. Okay. That's bullshit. It's so everybody sees that there are police out there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And, 85% of humans are not going to break laws. 5% are going to break the laws. 10% are like, maybe I could get away with it, or crimes of opportunity, right? So by having police cars marked up, it keeps that 10% like thinking twice about it. Like, maybe I shouldn't speed. Maybe I shouldn't try to like steal something or whatever. So there's that part of it. So by busting a high profile guy, sure, you can scare a few sheep to fall in line in, fear of possibly getting, caught or whatever. But at the end of the day, criminals are criminals. If you're a criminal, you're going to break the law. Law abiding citizens are not trying to break the law.
Mm-hmm.
And the laws were made to be there, but they're also made to be fluid, right? And that's why when you see a lot of laws the way they're written, it's based on what was the intent.
Right.
Did they intend to defraud, or was there a lack of evil intent, or lack of knowledge? And those are key elements to any case and should always be there. And I don't think that it's always being applied. I mean, Bracket's a friend of mine. We chit chat, and I mean, I've told him to his face, like, you're an idiot, like, you shouldn't have done it, but you did it.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that he should have paid his fine and, gone on like everybody else in the state of Indiana that's done that crime thousands of times over? Yes. Mm-hmm. Do I think that he should have had to pay almost $250,000 and not hunt for 2 years on planet Earth? Oh, that's probably a little extreme.
Yeah, sure.
Only because that's not the standard. You know what I mean? So that's my big thing with fish and game is, or any law. It doesn't even have to. I don't have to single out fish and game. Mm-hmm. It's just make it fair and make it equal.
Doesn't seem weird on that because, like, you look at the, whether it's TV personalities or big bucks or whatever, and it's like, okay, these are going to be made example. Let's flip the script and look at mainstream America, and especially like our sports figures out there. It seems like most of those guys do something, and it's, this dude's got drugs all over the place, and he's waving a gun around in a public place, and he just gets a slap on the wrist. Like, nothing even happens to him. Mm-hmm. It's like the complete antithesis of what's happening on like a wildlife side.
Yeah. I mean, I could be wrong, but it does seem like that Ja Morant, he got in more trouble from the NBA than he actually did.
I'm glad you picked up that's who I was talking about. Like, that's exactly what it was. And same with like the NFL side of things. Like, whether it's domestic abuse or whatever, the NFL punishes those people more than the actual justice system does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird.
Well, and I think, still goes down to, if you've got some big attorneys and you've got a lot of money to fight it, you can fight a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And again, the law was never written. When they wrote laws, they didn't say, if you can't afford an attorney, you're fucked.
Yeah.
But if you can afford an attorney, then we're going to bend it a little bit for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a weird situation for society to be in on that. And, it's one versus the other, but especially us as like hunters and outdoorsmen, like we're already a minority, but you look at how things are made an example of or treated versus like what we see in mainstream. And it's like, geez, man, like I'm getting the book thrown at me and this guy's getting off for what I think could be a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah. 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 And I think, unfortunately, it's, I don't know that it's ever going to change, per se. But I don't know. We'll see. It's, there is a lot of eyes, on us. And, I think we all have a duty, so to speak, right? That we want to do things the right way. Mm-hmm. And, I don't always understand or agree with some of the choices, that get made. One of the things that I always teach in like hunter safety is always to remind the kids, like try to clean some of the blood off the animal. Let's try not to do, in the bed of the truck with the rope still tied, the dragging rope still tied around it. Let's get rid of the crushed up beer cans and stuff like that. And one of the dads one time was like, oh, so you're you think that we should dance, for society or whatever. And I said, look, man, I'm never going to apologize for being a hunter, but let's try not to give the antis any more ammunition because I feel like they're a little more organized in their efforts to go against us than we are to protect what we have at times. So let's just not give them any ammunition. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean they're for sure more streamlined as an organization, where we're more fractured as a group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, we're too busy fighting who wears Mossy Oak, who wears Sitka, who wears Under Armour. You know what I mean? Like, are you a public land hunter, private land hunter? You crossbow, vertical bow, like,
yeah,
slingshot. Yeah. We could sit and fight amongst ourselves.
Yeah, no, man.
We don't need any help, you know?
Yeah, completely agree. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Muddy and Stealth Cam trail cameras.
Cell cams, cell cams, cell cams. What an evolution the industry has seen, and we've experienced personally over the past 5, 10, whenever cameras were invented, right? It's like, man, it's totally changed the way that we inventory deer, pattern deer, and ultimately the decisions that we make when we're going out to hunt. They're a serious piece of the puzzle, and that information is invaluable for us. We trust the Muddy and Stealth cams, together to be able to collect any of that information.
Yeah, I mean, as an admitted trail cam addict, I've definitely been guilty of underhunting places or relying too heavily on that information that's come in. That said, it's an invaluable tool to the overall management plan and strategy that I have for my own properties or even hunting public land. It doesn't matter. We have a finite amount of time in going out and hunting. So when you and I are after a particular class or quality of deer, usually mature buck, we can't waste time hunting an area where that deer doesn't exist. And those cell cams provide that information that allow us to spend the time in the area with the highest chance to accomplish our goals.
Say it all the time, man. They can't kill them if they're not there.
That's it.
So right now, any of our listeners can use code HUNTR20 to get 20% off either Muddy or Stealth cameras. We're certainly going to be taking advantage of that, and we hope you guys do too.
Yep, check out Stealth Cam and Muddy. So John, when you got up into Iowa, I mean, what, I guess mindset wise, was it purely from a deer hunting situation or standpoint?
100%. Yeah. I always tell everybody, I did not come out here for the gravel roads and the Wi-Fi because they both suck really bad.
Yeah.
I 100%. So the year that I moved out here, I was sitting on I had 4 points, and I felt like there's a pretty good chance I wasn't going to draw, for this zone. So it was going to be the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of thought about it, and I thought, man, I can go hunt Iowa archery once every 5 years, or I can just move there and I get 2 buck tags every single year. I'm like, this is a no-brainer, like, if you're going to be a country singer, you go to Nashville. If you're a tech company, you go to Silicon Valley. You want to kill big whitetails, come to Iowa, I do kind of chuckle sometimes. Like, I remember one time Rogan, he was, I forget who his guest was, but he was talking about Dudley on his podcast. And he's like, I got this friend of mine, John Dudley, this crazy SOB, moved his whole family to Iowa just so he could hunt whitetails every single year. And I'm like, I did it before Dudley did,
Yeah, a lot of people have. It's we asked that question to a lot of people that end up in Iowa, and it's
Rendell Erk was just here. We just did it in person. He's another one that moved out there a few years ago
just for deer.
Yeah. I mean, Chris B.
Yep.
Bomar. I mean, there's been a ton of people that have come out here, recently.
It comes down to like responsibilities and stuff.
Deer.
Like, if I didn't have my wife's family wasn't here and our business is the main thing, I'd have been out there years ago, probably.
Yeah.
Go to where the deer are.
Hey, we eat ice cream out here too, man.
All right. Well,
hey,
you could do it in Iowa.
We can always open an extension office.
A little franchise.
Another location.
Aspect. Yeah.
Hey, there you go. You're onto something. Entrepreneurial style. Start franchising that.
You gonna run it for me?
He'd probably John will eat all the profits.
100%.
Our profit margin here, John. We gotta have a conversation.
Oh my gosh,
that's funny. So when you get there though, I mean, I assume it's a bit of a whirlwind because everybody, you're like, oh, it's Iowa, it's great. Now, where'd you hunt? What was the plan?
What part of Iowa are you into?
I'm in Lee County.
What zone is that?
6.
So southeast?
Yep. Yeah, southeast, far southeast.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I'm 30 minutes from Illinois, 5 minutes from Missouri.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yep. So I came down here, and my first property I had 22 acres and it was timber. So I had a little bit of access to something maybe to kind of hunt, there. And, but I knew I was going to be hunting public. And there's a huge chunk of public called shimmick, which, I actually got to name, the newest pair of boots that Crispy has put out is actually called the shimmick.
Oh, wow.
I got to name that boot for them. When I was still working with Crispy at the time. Very cool. Before I switched everything over to Under Armour. But yeah, it's a huge chunk of public. So I knew that, within 5-10 minutes, I could be on some really good ground. And the shimmick's been known for producing giant deer that, that deer's never even seen a human before if you're willing to hike far enough in type stuff. So yeah, so I was really into that. And, of course, I started looking for leases, and immediately, to my surprise, I just assumed Iowa was going to be like Pleasantville, like everybody was going to be super, super friendly. And that wasn't the case. I was met with a whole lot of, you're an outsider, you're non-native type stuff. And I was like, oh man, I'm like,
I've heard
sorry.
that. I've heard that too.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough getting ground. And, it's something that it's been a hot topic for a while. We're always talking about hunter recruitment. We need more hunters. Well, at the same time, they're building more subdivisions.
Yep.
So hunters are being dispersed and we're losing access to properties. So it's kind of like, we're working towards a goal, but we're also hurting ourselves as well, in a way. But, and I, as hunting gets more and more popular, I had a couple of good pieces of ground that I was hunting on when I first moved here. Well, now then their grandkids are 15, 16 years old, and now they want to start hunting. So then the landowner's like, hey, I can't let you hunt here anymore. My grandkids, they want to start hunting. I'm like, no, I respect that. And I totally understand that. Sucks for me, but I get it, So it hasn't been the easiest thing to find good ground out here and to keep it. That's the other hard thing.
Well, dude, we can get into the access thing if you want. I don't think hunting is more popular than it was, 10 years ago. I think declining hunter numbers are kind of evidence of that. It's just that, you see fewer people occupying more space, and it's the classic, the rich landowner is going to, that's going to be the hunter, right? That's who has access to hunt now. And a lot of people have gotten displaced from leasing, buying, all sorts of scenarios, in addition to the building of subdivision, urban sprawl and all that's a factor of it as well. But, that's why I think that's why people
hunting, hunting styles.
Yeah.
Like when I first started hunting, I was totally cool to be sharing a 40-acre farm with 5 other dudes.
Yeah.
Then you want to start aging deer and you want to start growing deer. And then, you get into food plots and you want to start managing the ground. Well, now I want 200 acres for myself. Now I want 500 acres for myself.
Right.
So I really feel like I can manage that ground. So like I said, all of these things are kind of working together,
definitely,
to produce a lot of that.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. 'Cause that's what,
just wait and see if they put a crossbow in your archery season. Then you'll really feel
then it'll be, you'll feel the pressure in Iowa. Yeah. It is weird when you bring that up, John, because and you mentioned even, so I've got property in your home state of Kentucky now. And there's still, obviously there's a decent amount of hunters, but I think Kentucky's only at like 250 or 270,000 hunters in the state. So, relatively speaking to, Missouri, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, all of these states, there's not a lot of hunters in that state, right? And it feels like we have a lot of space where we're at. Public doesn't feel overrun. But when you get into some of these places like, Iowa, obviously, Southern Illinois, Ohio, these areas where you're trying to get into access or public, it's tight. And what's funny is the more we talk to people, it seems like, and maybe to your point, it's the style. When you go back in the 90s and even early 2000s, when there were supposedly more hunters, you didn't hear many people saying wow, there's too many guys here, or like this sucks, or like I don't have anywhere to hunt. Like you didn't hear that conversation happening. And, if you look at the numbers, you're talking 10+% more hunters at that time than there are now, at least. So it's just, that's where we keep running back into this access thing. And it's like, man, we've got less hunters, yet somehow we still have less access. And it just, that circle that we keep kind of running around is really a tough pill to swallow, I think.
The industry had a lot to do with that too. I mean, for sure. It's like we kind of put on a pedestal the extreme land manager, essentially, like your Juries, your Lakoskis, your your whitetail freaks. You throw all those guys. It's like, man, that was like perceived as the elite experience where I've got a large amount of acreage that I can hyper manage and have these totally unpressured giant deer. Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, it's awesome. Like that's a cool thing, but it kind of yield that mindset of like, I guess it's manifested in a form of greed, but it's like, okay, well, I need a lot of acreage to do that, and I need to kick everybody else off, and it's like, well, and then you start to, so the industry is definitely responsible for like the promotion of those big deer, that type of land and herd management, and that happened kind of in conjunction with all those loss of access items that we have, and so like it's kind of. A lot of people, rightfully will blame the industry for like, hey, it kind of ruined. Now here we are, where a lot of people don't have access. A lot of people are still prioritizing big deer over relationships in a lot of cases, and it's like it's kind of chaos.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're coming out of that a bit, but.
Yeah, and I've lost a couple of friends or pseudo friends, because of hunting, and looking back on it, you're kind of like, well. We probably weren't that good of friends to begin with, you know what I mean? But big deer make people do funny things.
They do, man. That's probably no truer statement than that. Big deer make people do dumb things as well.
Yeah. And, and like I said, like I even referenced earlier in the podcast, I thought I was a big time hunter because I was hunting multiple weekends.
Right.
When I first started. And good Lord, like, the drive to manage and the drive to kill big deer makes people hunt more and more and more and longer and longer. And I mean, granted, the show creates this, but I mean, God, I'm hunting 170 days a year, 190 days a year.
Holy cow.
Wow. That's a lot.
Easily between
like actually
turkeys,
hunting, John, like
pigs.
That's bow or gun in hand, actively hunting.
Yeah. You figure between pigs, coyotes, turkeys, whitetails, pronghorn, mule deer, elk, whatever the case may be, whatever the bears, whatever the season is. I'd say I probably log probably 170, 175 days.
Wow.
Either with a weapon in my hand or a camera in my hand, filming somebody else.
Oh, that's a ton.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it is. It's, and like I said, it used to be so funny because like I was content if I hunted a couple of weekends for whitetails, a couple of weekends for turkeys, and that's a season.
Yeah.
But now you're making 13 episodes. So you're traveling and you're hitting more states and,
So with that in mind, John, because obviously, how long's the show been running at this point?
So the show started out, originally it was called Arrow Wild TV. That ran for 3 years. And then I went through a name change and changed the show to Primal Divide. The reason for that is I wanted to get back into gun hunting a little bit.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to be a gun hunter, on Arrow Wild TV. Yeah, it could be done. But I was afraid that with the show being called Arrow Wild TV, it was going to distract potential partners.
Yeah, pigeonhole you into the archery space only. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I had gone through about a 15-year stretch where I hadn't shot anything other than with a bow. Turkeys, pronghorn, everything was, with a bow. And so, yeah, that was the reason for the name change. But, yeah, we're sliding into, what is now technically the 6th season of the show.
So, obviously, that's gone through pre-COVID and post-COVID. So I guess with like the amount of ground and obviously days covered out there, like what have you seen changing out on the landscape, pre-COVID to now? I mean, is it like, man, I end up in Illinois and there's just guys everywhere, or what have you started to see out there more and more?
In all honesty, during the COVID thing, so that was the year that I did my single season archery Grand Slam. And I did that and had to travel quite a bit, but I wasn't seeing a whole lot of hunters out. I didn't see the influx in numbers. I think there was a huge influx from manufacturers. They sold a lot more shit than they've ever sold before,
right?
Because there was a lot more people, I think, thinking about, if this thing gets worse, I'm going to have to go out and learn how to hunt for myself, and people had more free time. And so people started buying a lot of stuff. Now, on that retail side of things, it hurt the industry because, as you go a couple of years post-COVID and the sales aren't what they were during COVID, and these manufacturers are like, oh, shit, I'm like, no, you had a pandemic. You got to look at like a 5-year average here.
Sure. It was a false high, basically.
Very, very false high. But from a hunting perspective, it seems like there was a little bit of a ramp up for COVID, and now it really seems like it's right back to where it was pre-COVID as far as hunter numbers and, things that I'm seeing. So yeah, that part really hasn't changed. The biggest impact is from the retail side of things, because, it affected things like the ATA show, numbers. It affected a lot more from that side of the fence.
Interesting.
It's curious. I mean, it's interesting to hear you transition back into gun hunting from bow hunting. I don't think we hear that a lot. What do you think kind of inspired that transition back into gun hunting?
So when I left police work, to me, there's only a few things that are more symbolic to law enforcement than a gun, and that might be a set of handcuffs, So I was very much just bow. And then when I left law enforcement, I'm like, I'm just still going to always be bow, because even a rifle reminded me of, a gun, and it kind of made me think of the old job. And so that's why I stayed away from it. But as time heals all, right? And as I was more removed from it, I started thinking about it like, man, I kind of miss gun hunting a little bit. Maybe I want to try to get into some more long range stuff, and maybe I'll pick up some ARs and go do some pigs or coyotes or some stuff like that. And I'll be honest, I was turning down a lot of offers over the years as well. There was a lot of, firearm, opportunities that were opening up, and I'm like, no, I'm bow only. And then I just, from a business side, I looked at it too and was like, man, I don't have anything against guns,
right?
And it would allow me to reach and, I'm trying to, the word I'm looking for, like, not communicate, but to associate with all hunters.
Yeah.
Because I definitely didn't, relate. I never wanted to like take the position of like, I was an elitist, if
which we hear a lot as the vertical bow
you're
guy.
Less than.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I didn't want to be a part of that crowd either. Because like I said, I appreciate all forms of hunting. And so there was just too many reasons for me to not want to get back into it a little bit.
Help me understand, John, if you just my ignorance, like, what about a gun hunt? Is it the long range? Like, what is it? So truthfully, and I'll just tell you on my end. So I shot my first buck with a gun this past season, if you can believe that. I shot a lot of deer, and I have shot does before with a gun, and I even had to like second guess myself. I was like, is that my first buck with a, and it was, I shot a and truthfully for me, like if I'm just honest about comparing the, cause I'd shot a buck with my bow a week earlier on the same property. I was like, I want to compare the two scenarios. I'm like, which one do I, how were they different or whatever? And they were both exciting. They were both very exciting. They both got my blood pumping.
Yeah.
I mean, my preference is I preferred the archery harvest. Just for me, it was more,
Yes.
and a lot of guys will say this that are bow hunters. It's a more personal. A lot of times it's more close range and stuff. That's the appeal of a bow hunt. But on the gun hunting side, that's where I guess my kind of question is rooted is what about it is appealing you back out of an archery space?
Yeah, I think there's certain situations. So where it started to happen was around 2020. I was starting to like drop the negative thoughts of gun hunting, from my head.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2021, I was in Saskatchewan and I had just shot a mega giant whitetail with my bow. And then 2 days later, I had an opportunity at a moose. And it was me and the moose 200 yards apart. And when I say completely straight, flat, white snow, there is no stalking on this animal.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to see me coming a mile away, right? And it's 4 foot of snow. And I remember all of these thoughts came into my head and I processed it in a matter of like 5 seconds, It's like time slows down when you're in those situations. And I thought to myself, I have always wanted to shoot a moose, hunt a moose. It's -30. This is the shit that makes me excited when the elements are just nasty. Those are memorable hunts for me, And I'm standing out there with the icicle beard, and Leslie was filming for me, and she had a rifle there with her, and I got my bow in my hand, and I thought, I'm going to die of hypothermia before I close the distance and wait this moose out. I can't loft one here from 200 yards. And is my elitist mentality keeping me from a hunt of a lifetime, an animal of a lifetime, And I could tell it wasn't the Alaska moose, but for Saskatchewan, it's a 48-inch moose, which is a monster in Saskatchewan, especially in that Saskatoon area. So I looked at Leslie and there was no hesitation. I said, pass me your rifle. And she just like looked at me like, do we need to check your temperature? Like, are you feeling okay? And I'm like, I don't even know why I'm not even thinking, like, just give me the rifle. I want to hunt this animal. I'm done with this purist bullshit that I can only hunt with a bow. And if I don't kill it with a bow, then I'm less than, what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She passed me a 308 and I shot the moose and I didn't feel bad about it. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like I was less of a hunter. I was in the moment and I was excited that, that I was there and I had an opportunity like that. I came home right after that hunt. Immediately, it was late season Iowa. I took my muzzleloader out. I shot a 170 with my muzzleloader and same thing. I was like, this is badass. Like this was super cool. I don't feel any different. And I was kind of worried about it because, like I said, I'd gone on this 15-year stretch where I felt, in my opinion, I was only known as a bow hunter and nobody said shit. Everybody was like, that's super cool, man. Glad to see you embrace another weapon and not hesitate and whatnot. And so after that season, I went 15 years and then I shot 2 giant animals, in a matter of a week, with long guns. And I was like, that's it. I'm over it. Now, same thing. When somebody says, tell me your top hunts that are on your bucket list, it's archery this, archery this, archery this. It's like number 4 or 5 before I get to long range rifle that,
Yeah, sure.
So I'm like you guys, Hoyt's been a great partner of mine for years. And this year was super badass. I got my hands on the RX-8 pre-launch and was able to shoot my Iowa whitetail with that, before the launch. That was cool. But yeah, I prefer archery, but I think there are certain hunts that play into, rifle. Mule deer is another one.
Sure.
It's sheep hunting, and speaking candidly, let's say I've got a hunt here and I've got a hunt here. and they're bookend a hunt where it's a 4-day hunt. Now, I might be able to get it done with a bow, but I can increase my chances with a rifle as well.
Sure.
So do I miss an opportunity solely because I was dedicated to the bow? Yes, I've done it before, and I'm sure I'll do it again. But just having another weapon of choice is kind of cool too.
I mean, I can understand how that would be kind of liberating. I mean, it sounds like you felt kind of boxed into archery. Like you maybe would have liked to have been shooting a gun that whole time, or at least had that option. But you felt some pressure. Like you're like, well, I'm expected to shoot with a bow. And so
I did. No, and I did. And social media, I kind of let social media kind of push me into that a little bit too. You know, like I said, once you kind of get known for something, then it was like, oh shit. I mean, something on a total less trivial scale. Like I had long hair for the longest time, and I recently cut it all off. And I remember telling a buddy of mine, I'm like, I think I'm going to cut all my hair off. And like, no, you can't do that. That's what you're known for. I'm like, what? No, I'm not known for my hair. Eventually it's all going to fall out anyways, So
yeah, that's wild, man.
I think we all are guilty in that way a little bit, and on this side of the fence, you're looking for that edge. How am I going to stand out, or how maybe can the show perform better? Because, you're taking on partners. And so sometimes it's not all about just what I want. I want to make sure that I'm doing the best job I can for the partners. And if the show does better, then the partners get more benefit out of it as well, and I did a good job for them.
Is that ever an internal struggle for you, John? I mean, if you have a 4-day hunt or something like that, and you're like, well, the sponsors expect me to, and my show requires that I kill an animal on this trip. You're like, well, a gun is going to, is going to kind of guarantee that I can get that done. Are you ever feeling like, well, I really would prefer to do this hunt with a bow? I mean, do you have to make those sacrifices, or?
Yeah. And I've had to make those in the past. Luckily, the partners that I have, we kind of go into each year, with a game plan. This hunt's going to be a rifle hunt. And I know going in, that's a rifle hunt, and I'm going to build out the content for that partner, in that regard. And then I know certain hunts that come hell or high water, I'm going at it with a bow, win, lose, or draw, But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is a juggling act. And I think sometimes people don't quite understand. You hear people say, man, I don't want my hobby to become my job. Well, if I was independently wealthy, I could probably go at that mentality 100%.
Right.
But there ain't no trust fund. I'm not independently wealthy. I didn't win the lottery. So for me to operate in this profession, as much as I like to say, I'm going to do it my way and screw everybody else, I am paid by my show partners.
Right.
So in some way, shape, or form, I am obligated contractually, to what's going to help their business. Right. And as long as it fits within my personal goals, then I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm never going to let a company dictate you have to use this shitty product and you have to hunt the way we tell you to hunt. That's not going to fly. I'll leave this industry and I'll go do something else. But as long as it works within my beliefs and what I want to do, then, sometimes you got to be a little flexible.
Yeah. It's your livelihood. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Muddy.
Man, Jared, we probably have been using Muddy products for at least 10 years now.
It's a long time, dude.
It's been a long time. And I can remember when it was simply just safety harnesses and camera arms of all things. And, that's evolved to where you and I both have a bunch of Muddy box blinds as well.
I wouldn't say a bunch, but yeah, they've come a long way. And certainly the box blinds are huge. Shot that buck over your shoulder out of a Muddy box blind a couple years ago. The harness and all of the other safety accessories really are a major component of what Muddy offers for me. We've had some injuries in the past. I've had some tree stand accidents. This is all back before we were using, frankly, harnesses, the lineman's belt while we're hanging stuff, and the safe lines. I have those in every single one of, our fixed tree stands now. And we really have made safety a priority. That's a big deal for us. And, Muddy has everything we need for that.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about Muddy is anyone listening to the HUNTR Podcast can save 20% using the code HUNTR20. That's HUNTR20. Anything that you can see on the Muddy Outdoors store online, use that code, save yourself 20% for this hunting season.
Go Muddy. What does the future of Primal Divide as far as like a platform look like? So you guys, did I get that right earlier? You guys are on Sportsman, correct?
No, Waypoint.
Forgive me, on Waypoint.
Yep. Waypoint TV.
Okay.
So the show has grown every year that we've been on Waypoint. I've been very pleased with that platform. I like the idea that it's available on so many different streaming apps and so many different platforms.
And Waypoint's not been around that long, right? Waypoint's been around for what, six or 8 years, something like that.
Maybe 6.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, and so I know they're on like I've got a Samsung device, like it's
Samsung, Pluto, it's OTT, CTV.
And they have
and
like
an app
and an app as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an app, as well, and then you can just go to their website and you can binge watch, kind of YouTube style. But I've been happy with the platform that they've put out, and I'm happy with the growth that we've had every year. This year we finished out close to 3 million views, right at 3 million views for 2023, and
nice.
And I was happy with that. So, and you look at the cost, and I mean, is linear television dying? Maybe it will someday completely. There's a lot of educated guesses out there that say that it is going to die.
I mean, does Waypoint qualify? Would you call that a linear? No, it's OTT. Right?
I call it linear.
Well, some of it is, right?
But it's streaming.
It's still streaming type.
Well, so when I watch it on like my TV at home, it's linear. I don't have the ability to navigate.
On the connected TV side.
But it is OTT, right? So like there's an app that I could download and watch it that way.
Correct. And some of the platforms will let you do that too.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. There's Waypoint is a native channel on Sling, on the guide. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the way I always describe it. They do have native channel platforms, but it's also, a streaming, service as well. But, so I think the future is, man, I've always said, like, as long as I'm having fun and as long as people are still engaging and watching the stuff, then I'll keep doing it. If I lose interest in it, then I'll quit doing it, Yeah. And that's kind of always been my position. Like, and I've said it a lot of times at the end of the episodes, like, thanks for watching. If you guys like it, please let me know that you like it, and I'll keep doing it. But if you don't like it, then I'll exit stage left and go do something else, But
well, and from a business model standpoint, I mean, right, for your partners, which we're kind of talking about here, like you got to have people watching it, and so that's yours and Waypoint's responsibility, probably to continue to try to be where eyeballs are. I'm sure that is their mission, right?
That's it,
to accrue eyeballs.
Yeah. Yeah. And, my business model has always been, a lot of my contracts are weighted heavy on the deliverable side, on the photo content, reels, that side of things. Because when I first started the show, I couldn't guarantee that I was even going to have one view.
Right.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I've always put the contracts have always been heavy on tangible assets that I know that I can deliver.
Yeah. And
then as the show views have gone up, then I can start taking away from some of those deliverables. You know what I mean?
That's funny, John,
because you
may appreciate Jeremy and I's perspective is like ours is the opposite. So we have some paying partners and stuff as well, but we know full well we can't deliver shit when it comes to like I can't take pictures or right. So all we can basically do is sit here and BS, and for some reason people watch it. Right?
Organic integration.
So
we're kind of opposite in that way.
Yeah. Like I said, as the show's gone up, that's helped, and I really leverage a lot of my partnerships, and I've got some really good partners. The opportunity to join up with Under Armour, to come on board as an athlete, that was huge, and they've done a phenomenal job for me as far as like making sure that they incorporate a lot of my content with Hoyt. On their platform, and Diamondback truck covers and Grizzly coolers and, Luminoc and HHA and stuff. So, they've been really awesome for me, to help do that, and vice versa. Same thing with Loophole. Every time Loophole uses a photo, I'm usually holding a Hoyt bow, and you can see Easton arrows and, stuff like that. So great partners working well together. That's really gone a long way, and that's helped out. But yeah, I mean, in the short term, that's the plan for the year, man. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. And I think anybody that knows me and follows me, you know, and they see the way I conduct myself, idle time is really bad for me. I don't do well with it. You know, a little bit of depression, a little bit of PTSD from past stuff. So I just have to stay busy, you know, between Primal Divide, and then I have Johnny Utah Creative, you know, which is my own little freelance, you know, marketing content creation company. I have Bourbon Barrel Game Calls, you know, my turkey call company.
Okay, I saw your
Shameless
T-shirt.
plug.
Yep.
Yeah, no. I was gonna mention it. Obviously, sucker for bourbon or 1792 sitting on the table.
We were sipping some a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Started early today.
Yep. So that's been a fun business, you know, for me as well. And that gives me a product, right?
Yeah.
It's my own personal product business that I still get to dabble in, much of the way that Wicked, you know, kind of was, right? And again, Primal Divide is a non-paying partner, or Bourbon Barrel is a non-paying partner, you know, to Primal Divide to plug the turkey calls during turkey season. So, you know, that helps out a lot, gives me a platform to kind of help promote that. And we work with a lot of other companies as, you know, as well, and a couple other individuals on it. So we probably should do a We Are HUNTR podcast, you know, set of calls or something for you guys.
There you go, man.
If you guys are working with a turkey call company or something, but
that'd be cool.
Yeah, maybe we can. Yeah.
I think what's interesting about it, John, is that, like, and I don't know when, maybe we're in the midst of it right now, but, you know, historically, the outdoor content industry side of things, right, has been very pay to play. You know, pay for airtime space, sponsors then supporting the content producers to pay for that, and then expenses eventually, so hopefully, some profit. I think we're in an interesting spot because we've got a lot of people who, including the three of us, who have, you know, paid partners to support us to continue to make great content. You've got a lot of people who I would say probably don't have paid partners that are producing content. You also still have a lot of people trying to make the old model of, like, you know, I'm going to pay for airtime and I'm going to get partners. And this, you know, it's a complete shakeup right now with the way that the industry is operating. And so, you know, I don't think that the people who are doing it old school way of, you know, let me pay $150,000 for airtime on Outdoor Channel and let me make up the sponsors. I don't think that model's going to survive, or very few of them are going to survive. So if outdoor television is to continue, right, they've got to make a big change. I think groups like Waypoint have seen that, thus making the pivot into where they have, and ultimately giving, you know, shows like yours an opportunity to still have that somewhat TV linear feel to it, an episodic feel to it, and continue that model without necessarily the overhead that was required from a, you know, an outdoor television type of mindset originally. So it's a weird time frame because I think there's probably more content being produced than ever and more places than ever. But at some point, there's going to be kind of a natural culling, I guess, or consolidation that happens to where there's still only going to be so many that can survive and thrive.
Absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree. Maybe some of it had to do with my age when I even got into this. But again, being famous was never like that thing, right? Like,
you didn't get into it to be like an outdoor entertainer.
Yeah. Like, maybe if I was like 19 or 20, then I might have been like, oh my God, I got this 15 minutes of fame, and I have to have it. Like, I have to be, you know, and you do see that with social media, like this crazy amount of FOMO, like, oh my God, I got a bunch of likes on this post. I'm addicted to it. I gotta have likes from these people, you know? One, I didn't even have social media because we weren't allowed to have social media in my old career.
Right.
And I was older kind of when I got into this deal anyways, comparatively, like, you know, and I reference these like 19, 20-year-old photographers that I've seen that are talented as shit, you know, like, you know, there's going to be some cool stuff being produced, you know, by a younger generation. I'm not taking anything away from them, But my sole goal was to help these partners.
Right.
You know, they're the ones that are paying me. So I feel like I'm working for them and I'm not really working for me. Now there is that a natural thing that does happen anyways. You know, the more my image is seen, sure, people start to recognize you or whatever. But I've always been like, cool, I can now leverage that to work with other partners, and maybe these other partners will recognize what I'm doing and that kind of stuff. But it's I think it's human nature. Social, and there's been a lot of conversations, right? People talk about how social media is hurting, you know, hunting, and it 100% it is, but social media is also helping hunting as well. You know, and it's a double-edged sword. And I think you look at the pros and the cons, and I think it's a complete balanced out wash, however you slice it. There's always going to be enough positive influence as there is negative influence, you know?
John, let me ask the naive question here. Where did Johnny Utah come from? The character Johnny Utah, like back in the day cartoon?
Yeah.
Is it really?
So, no. So the movie Point Break.
Yep.
Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze. In the movie Point Break, Keanu Reeves is undercover with the FBI, and his name in the movie is Johnny Utah.
Yeah.
So Todd and I were actually at an ATA show, and he was like, "Hey," he's like, what's been going on at work?" And I said, "Man, I've been working this case with the FBI." And he's like, "Dude, you're the real Johnny Utah."
That's hilarious, man.
And we were at one of the ATA bars one night, and then the next morning in the Wicked booth, like people are coming by the booth and they're like, "Johnny Utah, give me 2." And nickname just kind of stuck and just kind of ran with it, you know?
That's funny, man. Point Break is a great movie, by the way.
Great movie.
Yeah.
It is.
They remade it, didn't they?
Solid movie.
I think they
Yeah,
there's a recent one. I think it was pretty good too. What day is bad?
Yeah,
I can't honestly remember.
Who was in that?
Horrible.
Maybe I didn't see
Who
it.
was
A couple of no names.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple of no names that were in it, and yeah, they completely ruined it.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Now I'm afraid of another famous Patrick Swayze movie, you know, Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
So March 21st, the new Roadhouse is coming
with
out.
Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor.
Jake Gilly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Oh,
either.
is that the actual? They're remaking that Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Oh,
with those guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Roadhouse fan.
I mean,
so when it comes to like naming deer, I mean, in years past, I've had a Wade Garrett. I've had a Dalton.
Yeah.
I've named deer off characters of.
I don't know,
Roadhouse,
man.
so.
You start trying to outdo old, P. Swizzle on his movies. I don't know. Swayze was kind of the dude.
You admit you can get mad at me for this. I don't know if I've ever seen the original Roadhouse.
Really?
Yeah.
You should watch it.
I was never a big
I task you.
Swayze guy, I guess.
Dude,
really?
Sam Elliott is the man.
Yeah.
That is one individual that I would fangirl out if I had an opportunity to hang out with Sam Elliott.
It's good stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I love Point Break. That's a fantastic movie.
Point Break. Yeah. I think you'd like Roadhouse. You like Sam Elliott, right?
Yeah, his face is not coming to mind.
The voice is coming to mind for you.
What else is he in?
Sam Elliott?
Yeah.
Holy shit. I mean,
yeah, I know.
A lot of movies.
That's not the older brother in yeah, it is. He's also in that
A Star is Born.
Yeah.
A Star is
Okay,
Born.
that's Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
that's a great movie.
We Were Soldiers. He's like
never seen that.
the sidekick for Mel Gibson, and you've never seen We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson?
I don't know.
Oh my god, dude!
I don't know.
And Sam Elliott did that. He did the voice for that Ram commercial a few years back.
Yep. He's also in that. Was it the Ranch?
Iconic.
That show.
The Ranch with Ashton Kutcher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of a weird show, but
yeah.
Sam Elliott.
Yeah, We Were Soldiers. Put that one on the list.
It's ringing a bell.
Necessary.
Yeah, great movies. But yeah, that's where the nickname comes from.
That's cool, man. I'm glad it. I was like, man, I gotta ask that. I don't know where that really came from.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I get people all the time that are like, "So why'd you move to Iowa? Like, why'd you leave Utah?" I'm like, I've never lived in Utah.
Yeah, never been there. Damn, man.
Yeah. So, and like actually, so when I first moved here, I actually changed my Instagram handle to Johnny Iowa. And that lasted about 5 minutes. I got about 100 DMs, and they were like, "Change it back,
Put it back."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Johnny, Iowa.
So, yeah. So changed it back.
Damn,
Yeah.
man. That's crazy.
But yeah, so it's pretty good, man. Like I said, I honestly, like, I'm having a ton of fun doing what I'm doing. I mean, I love to hunt. I love photography. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So it's an opportunity. I mean, it kind of combines all my favorite things, that I like to do. And, like I said, I'll be 46 next month, but this morning started with a gym workout, office work, podcast with you guys, some photo content scheduling, and then I'll finish the night, at jiu-jitsu, and like that's like every day,
Not a bad way to go out, man. Just keep cranking.
No, just stay as young as I can and stay as active as I can. And that's what I tell everybody to do, man. Just find something you're passionate about. And even if it's not your day job, it's okay. You can still be your number one passion in life.
Yeah.
You get off work at 4 or 5 p.m., rock and roll on your passion until that passion becomes big enough that hopefully maybe you can step away from your day job and turn it into your income. And then you can really start having fun.
It's a hard thing for people to grasp. I mean, most entrepreneurs have been through literal hell, and in many cases of whether it's stress on life. Like I know when I started my marketing business, I would work from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. many cases after my day job, and trying to spend time with the family and stuff, and like get up and do the whole thing over and again. And multiple days a week would be like, why? What am I doing here? But
yeah,
it's not, if it's going to come easy, everybody would do it. Right. So, I mean, ultimately you got to find the struggles, and if you want it bad enough, and even if it's just, man, I'd like to make some side cash to get that extra hunting lease, or to buy that property, or to take that hunting, whatever it is, like, you make it happen. It's just, you got to want to make it happen.
No, that's exactly right. And I know I've had some other like fellow entrepreneurs that were like, man, sometimes do you feel like you're giving away too many trade secrets as far as business success? And I'm like, no, because if they wanted to do it, they would have already done
Absolutely.
it. I'm not giving away shit,
Yep.
But no, I have I use the motto a lot, work more hours, and it's tattooed on me, and that's kind of always been like that motto that I promote and I push, that has so many different meanings. But it was when I was a kid, my dad, I was like, how do I make more money? And he's like, just work more hours. Like, that's all you got to do. And thankfully, he taught me that, and I've never been afraid of hard work. But I mean, God, I've had camera guys that have worked for me in the past, and they're like, dude, when I went to bed, you were in the office. And when I woke up, you were in the office. Like, did you even sleep last night? I'm like, I got like 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I don't get it. Like, you do this every day. I'm like, if that's what it takes.
Yeah. It's not cut out for everybody. That's just the way it is. And, but yeah, I mean, if you want it bad enough, you can make it happen. It's, especially nowadays, man, the amount of tools that people have to get creative and to start their own business and, make a product, whatever it is. I mean, it's like, holy shit, it's easier than it's ever been.
It's 100%. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's, like, what is it? The Rock says, one of his phrases that I've always thought was super inspirational is, day one or one day.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can, one day I'm going to start this photography business, or one day I'm going to start a business on Etsy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, how about today? Just let today be fucking day one.
Yep.
Like, what are you waiting for? If you're going to do it, do it. And that's how you get to day two faster.
That's it, man.
So you just have to start. And that's kind of the way I did it with the businesses, that I'm involved in, and the stuff that I do. And, even like the supplement company that I work with, a company called Forge, the owner's a hunter, and we've been working together on a new product we're going to be dropping here in a couple months. And it's actually going to be called Work More Hours. And really excited about it. And it plays into a lot of the stuff that a lot of that brain cognitive type, stuff that I'm into. And I think it's going to be a phenomenal product for everybody. And because of the kind of conjuncture with our brands and what we're doing together, I have a little more skin in the game on that front. And it's super cool. And that's what I've tried to do, man, as far as like the companies that I work with and the people that I surround myself with, make sure that everybody's got that shared vision,
Yeah.
If you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room,
Agreed.
If I'm the most in shape guy in the room, I'm in the wrong room. And I've put that ego and that pride side behind me, and, constantly trying to find people to look up to and pick up things and get motivated by other people. And I think more people need to do that. You see it so much in this industry too. If somebody had a hell of a season, why are you talking shit on them?
Yeah.
Maybe shoot them a DM, be like, good fucking job. How'd you do it?
Yeah.
Because more than likely, if you're cool, they'll probably throw you a bone. And it might be something you can use down the next season to make yourself better, but there's too much of that, too much animosity, too much jealousy in our space. And it's pretty annoying. And I keep thinking to myself again, referencing my age, but I'm like, am I old enough that like, I can be like, I'm not a part of this shit. Like y'all do, you know what I mean? Like you all do this stuff. I'm just over here doing my thing.
It's weird, man. We talk, you talk about the good and the bad of social. We talked about on the last podcast is like, it really has become like a dick measuring contest. And it's like, at some point, when's it going to stop? There's only, especially with deer, you talk about, well, that deer's big, my deer's bigger than yours. There's a ceiling there.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's not like you just continually to infinitely shoot bigger deer. Like, that's not how it works. And so, and at the end of the day, like what's the end goal? Like, it really is, and it sucks because I think these deer deserve a massive amount of respect and appreciation, but there's a fine line to where we're all kind of like, man, I don't like big deer don't really matter anymore. Cool. You killed a 190. Like, great.
No,
like I saw a bunch of them.
Well, just on that note there, like the speed of social media is happening so fast. Remember when everybody hated Tiger Woods for a little while?
Oh yeah.
It was like a week.
Yep.
And then like the second week, people loved him again.
Yep.
Because social media is just happening so fast, right? So back in the day, if you shot a 220-inch deer, it lived for a little while.
Oh yeah.
But now it's truly like 15 minutes of fame. Okay, you're cool for Monday.
Yep.
Like, did you see the dude that shot the big buck on Monday?
Yeah.
And on Tuesday, it doesn't mean shit anymore. Yeah. Same as, think about when a guy shoots a big buck at the very end of December or early January. Dude, after Christmas, I'm over it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That big buck doesn't get the likes that it would have gotten if you would have shot it in September or October or early November. After you get past Halloween and especially when you get past Christmas, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, it just fades. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, if they would start to realize that killing that big giant buck or that state record, nobody really fucking cares. It's not going to move the needle like it did in the early Waddell, early Lukoski days, stuff like that. Because so many people are like, and I picked up your all's podcast when you guys were talking about that. It's happening all the time. Nobody cares.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I almost feel bad for guys like, think about Lee Lukoski. Like, that dude can't just go and shoot any deer that he wants at any given time. Like, he's got people expect.
It's
to
about
shoot giants.
anything, though. It's not just deer, and it's not just good stuff either. Dude, like schools get shot up, and literally days later, people are like,
they forget.
On to the next thing.
Yeah, it's gone.
Whether you're shooting a big deer or like it's a good thing or it's a bad thing, it's like unless it's literally affected your life. That's the weird part about social media is like, dude, if I shoot a giant deer, it's gonna be the whole season that we're gonna be going back, and the people that I care about, But you're right. You put it on social media, and it's like, it's a blip. good, bad, otherwise,
Yeah.
news-wise. It's kind of toxic in that I think like it's there's just so much noise. You know, it's hard to tease apart what to pay attention to, and big deer, I guess, a part of that.
Well, yeah, and it's a shame because there's good stuff happening in the world, period, and like it gets drowned out so fast. You know, it's literally. I mean, think about like mainstream media. It's like, you know, whatever, World News Tonight on ABC or CBS, whatever the hell it is, ends like the show. The last 2 minutes are like a great thing happening, and it's like the first 58 minutes were dog shit, like everything that's wrong with the world, right? And it's like the
world's coming to an end.
Yeah, we're gonna celebrate 2 minutes of like somebody who's done an amazing thing with kids and terminal illnesses. The previous 58 minutes is how the world is a piece of shit. It's like, should we not flip that around and like spend 58 minutes on like what's great in the world and like 2 minutes on what's dog shit? But that's just how it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing with social. And yeah, I mean, you post a picture and somebody will figure out something bad to say about your success, which, to be honest, you know, if you're, you know, like-minded and you think the right way, it should fuel your fire. If somebody's just out there shit talking you should just feed off of that.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I'm one of the worst because I'll see a negative comment and I'm like, okay, CB297. I see you, fucker.
See you. Yeah, we're the same way.
Yeah, or whatever the handle is or whatever. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Yeah. I'm like, that's awesome, asshole.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, don't let it affect your day. No, if it's already ruined.
Yeah, I already wrote 7 sentences back in the comment.
Name and lipstick.
Yeah. I've already commented the whole way back and then blocked them. So.
Yeah. What is it? That one, the Adam Sandler movie where he calls Steve Buscemi and, you know, he's like, hey man, I just want to apologize.
Oh, Happy Gilmore.
So he's like sitting there with his lipstick.
Yeah.
Yeah, he crosses his name off the list of people to kill or whatever.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh yeah, I've got a list of shitheads, you know, mentally that I've kept track of over the years. But like I said before, I saw a reel the other day that made me laugh, and it said, you know, it's always funny. You put me in a room full of people that talk shit on me, they become real damn friendly real fast, you know. But it's just people, man.
That's it.
People hiding behind a keyboard and there's nothing else better to do. They hate their lives, talk shit on people. And I'm like, really? There's a lot more pressing things out there in the world to like that upset me versus like somebody's post
here's
or whatever.
Here's a tip, John. Don't read them.
I know.
Don't read them. What's the point? I'll tell you what, there are, and we see it like on different platforms and stuff. Because
TikTok's the worst.
Well, the more of you that somebody, whatever, if it's content you're putting out that they're consuming, or if you actually know the person, like you said, it's to play off of that quote or whatever, it's like, you want to have opportunities to engage with people who care about the things that you're doing, but you also want to protect yourself from, you know, the people who don't have anything good to say. And so we read a lot of Instagram direct messages, or people write into the website, and on YouTube, it's pretty good because people, for a better part, are watching an hour or more of these, you know, podcasts and stuff.
Yeah.
That's legitimate input, you know, and feedback, and we want to engage with those people and stuff. When we put clips on, like, you know, TikTok, like Jeremy mentioned, is probably the worst. People just see a blip, and it's like, and then there's opinions flying around out there. And so they're fairly worthless as far as I'm concerned. You know, not the people themselves, but just they're on such a short premise of like what's being put out there. So it's just, to me, it's like, it's almost not real, right? So I'd rather spend my time on stuff where I know a majority of it or enough to formulate an opinion as being consumed, and then it's like, all right, cool. Now we have a place here where we can operate.
Well, it's you know, another reel that is comical to me is always like, you know, you don't have anything nice to say, but you know, you're following, like, bitch, you're a fan. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like if you're gonna keep following,
we see those.
And I'm living in your head rent free, it's like,
people type like, like, this is so dumb, it's a waste of time, and it's like, and yet here you are.
Here you are.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for bumping the algorithm. Have a good day.
You took the time to make a comment. I'm in your head, man.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, like I said, it's funny, you know, there's enough work out here for all of us to do. We want to protect our space, and we want to align ourselves with like-minded people, and that's a given. Social media gives people a voice sometimes, and it gives them the ability to be something more than maybe what they are, and whatever. We'll always have that. But no, I was just going to say, I checked out your all's podcast. I like the flow, and obviously I pinpointed right away that you guys are working with Hoyt, and I'm like, oh hell yeah, these are my people.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to reach out here and see. I'd like to get on here and chat with you guys.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, man.
I appreciate you guys having me on.
It's been great getting to know you.
Yeah, it was good to run into you at ATA and be able to have those conversations too, man, and definitely keep in touch with us for sure. We're all about kind of hearing the stories and the journeys here in the season. And have you seen any sheds? Picked up any sheds yet?
I haven't. I went out the other day, and I actually just started doing some winter feeding, and I walked 1 2-acre food plot, and I didn't see anything sticking up. So I was like, okay, we'll just get back to feeding, and I'll make this swing out to PA, and then whenever I get back,
there you go. It'll be better timing. Yeah,
check out some field. Yeah,
we're
check
early
some field edges.
Early in it still.
Yeah. Normally, so historically speaking, March 12th has always been my number one day where I scoop up the most.
Yeah. If it can stay undisturbed, I'm sure that probably would be a good one.
Yeah. I got a couple properties that I have to I got to get in when I can, because if not, the people that don't have permission, they like to walk it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
those
I gotta get out there pretty fast.
I picked up a good one the other day, John, like a 70-inch shed that I was watching him, and he popped off, and so I went and walked 3 miles in the pouring rain. I was completely drenched. I'm still picking thorns out of my hands and stuff, but I found one side. The other one's out there somewhere. I just gotta, hey, 70-inch side, but I mean, he probably would only, gross. He'd be like 145. He's a 9-point with like a 12-inch spread, and I found the 5-point side.
Oh, that's cool. That's super cool. Yeah, we've got a couple. That I know that we want to find on one of the properties. One of the deer, I actually stuck him last fall, and we think that I got one lung. Just a solid 85, probably 85, might get close to 90 class deer. And we didn't see him until November of this year.
That's large.
He resurfaced, and I'm like, oh my God, he's alive. Thought it was a zombie, you know what I mean? And he made it all the way through. So
nice.
I really want to try to find his sheds. We didn't find him last year, so we're hoping we find him this year. I don't know where he goes and winters at, so that might be a problem. But so there's a couple of good bucks to kind of see if we can scoop up. But the big goal for this year is to try to find some more ground to lease up. I'm looking for another 150 acres or something. One of the farms that I've got, it's currently on the market. Like I was mentioning to you guys, it's for sale right now. So I think eventually they're going to lower the price enough to where it's going to get sold. And
they all do.
Eventually they will. So I'm not quite in a position to buy up any ground right now. We're close, maybe another year. And I'll be ready to pick up something for myself. But I'm gonna try to find another piece. And like I said, this year we're gonna start out turkey, coyotes, pigs, and then we head out to Arizona for over-the-counter elk hunt out there, and then Kentucky velvet, Colorado mule deer, Iowa. I'm even going to Arkansas this year for a whitetail hunt.
Oh, cool.
That's where I shot my first whitetail buck in my life. So going to go back there and hunt with my cousin, kind of a family fun trip.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
And so the theme of this year's season is basically every man's season. Every hunt that we're doing is over the counter, or it's something anybody can go do without dropping a bunch of money on.
Very cool, man.
And no South Africa this year, no Spain this year, nothing crazy exotic, just stuff that anybody can go do. And I think it's gonna be a fun year.
Heck yeah, man.
Awesome.
Sounds awesome. Well, yeah, dude, we appreciate you joining in. So last thing though, so everybody can find your stuff on Waypoint. Is it like 365? Is it on there? Is it quarterly based? How's that work?
52 weeks a year.
Okay.
I have always been committed to doing the show semi-live. So, excuse me, I go on a hunt and I come home, and the first thing I do is rip up the episode, get it cut in, get the trailer done, closed captioning, send it to Waypoint. They usually have it up on the schedule within a week to 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So anytime when I have an episode premiere on Waypoint, that hunt happened within the last 30 days, at least, if not
awesome.
last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I've always been committed to that. I just always hated when I saw a hunt in the fall and I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that social media post last fall, about that hunt. So, anyways, so 52 weeks a year, you can go to Waypoint TV, Primal Divide. You can watch all the previous seasons and plus the new stuff. And then the biggest way if anybody wants to follow along with more of the day-to-day jackassery and the stuff that I do in my daily life, it's Johnny Utah Hunt on IG.
The old Johnny Utah.
Very good.
That's it.
Cool, brother. Well, we appreciate you coming on and talking with us, and definitely keep in touch here as you get into the off season, and look forward to following some journeys, man.
Yeah, likewise, man. Look forward to bumping into you guys and see, like I said, bump into you guys at some shows.
There you go.
As well this spring. So,
yes, sir. We'll see you in Iowa.
Cool. Sounds like a plan.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Sever.
Well, one of the biggest things that we always talk about is what our arrow setups are. And this year we're shooting the Sever broadheads. I think we're both shooting the new 2-inch titanium broadhead. And so, we're huge proponents of expandables. And I know we've had this argument back and forth with people, but we're right and you're wrong. And you just need to accept it. We just want to have a giant wound that pumps out blood. That's the bottom line. We build our arrow setups and shoot bows, to maximize penetration. And we shoot broadheads that are going to give us the best blood trails, the most hemorrhage possible. And so part of those setups is we're also shooting the Easton arrows here coming up pretty soon. So we've shot the Victory in the past, and there's all kind of great arrow shafts on the market, but we're looking for a whole system from broadhead to arrow components to the arrow shaft itself. And the more we look at some of these Easton shafts and the components that go with them, that setup's going to be really deadly for us. Yeah, I'm actually using the Easton traditional axis right now in my traditional setups for both my recurve and my longbow. I've got a 100-grain brass insert on those, and then obviously I'm using a fixed blade broadhead on those specific shafts. Right on. So, but yeah, our goal is always to be shooting the best broadhead that we think is going to be the most lethal for our setups. We've done plenty of research. We believe in the Sever broadheads, and we hope you would check them out at Sever Broadheads as well. And awesome. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's interesting to see that kind of process from John's angle. Really being essentially a non-hunter, even into his early 20s. When he got into it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that, especially to end up with how deep he is now in the space at 45 or 46 years old, to have been in this for so long, and obviously Wicked's an unbelievable product. Yeah. That come through, and dude, I don't go into the woods without a Wicked saw. Yeah, it's funny to see obviously see that tore myself up pretty good on that. That was going at the Licking Branch. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people tied back into Todd Prignitz. Oh, yeah. In retrospect, that's a guy where, I bet we would have had an awesome conversation with. Oh, yeah. And you still see the Walter Payton memes and stuff come up from him. But, Todd was that kind of passion is just contagious. People just want to be around that. He was one of the guys that I first remember being, he was I think he was a Michigan guy, moved to Iowa just because he's like, I love, this is the holy ground for me to be on. Mm-hmm. And so, as you kind of see all the different players who at one point in time had interactions with Todd, dude was an influential guy, for a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So, but cool to hear from John and see his story there. I wondered how that, kind of parting ways from Todd and stuff after Wicked, like where that went, because I knew he stuck with it for a while, and then to kind of see the photo video side of his stuff take off. I wasn't really sure how he kind of all circled into that.
Mm-hmm.
Also pretty freaking crazy, some of those narcotics incidences.
Oh, yeah.
Like undercover. Yeah, to your point, like, and maybe who knows what John looked like back in the day, but like I see him now, I'm like, yeah, dude, that's a cop.
I know. It's like, yeah, dude, there's no you weren't getting past me.
You came in
and you wonon't do this coke off my
You came in to buy heroin, like, yeah, you're a cop, right?
Yeah. He's like, I used to buy heroin. I was like, for a police work. Like, yeah, obviously. Right.
Sell it, buying, selling, supply and demand.
Imports, exports.
Yeah. Boats and hoes.
Yeah, John's cool.
Yeah, no, it's cool to catch up with him at ATA and have him on. So we appreciate him coming on, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Yeah, later.
Take me